and welcome back to session 4. So let's keep the momentum going. As we previously looked at in session 3, we've looked at your power words, but also that priming sequence. And we use the power words and take individual words from our list and combine it all together to become that priming monologue. Now, realizing as well, this next part, which is going to be your hypnotic voice, what it's going to do for your priming sequence is take it from just being a speech or a monologue and turn it into a sort of informal induction. Remembering that we will get formally to the induction, which are your techniques, which are specific ways to put somebody into trance. But the idea behind this is to start to develop a hypnotic trance from the very moment we start to interact with our clients. This is the valuable lesson that conversational hypnosis can give us. So what is your hypnotic voice? The hypnotic voice comes in 3 stages. Now, if you formally look at the old literature of hypnosis, a hypnotic voice is a common theme that gets talked about over and over. Essentially, to become a great hypnotist, to become an influential hypnotherapist, we've got to avoid just learning the techniques or just learning the words or just learning the hypnotic patter. These are all valuable, but what great hypnotists tend to do is they begin to sound like a hypnotherapist. They begin to sound like a hypnotist. They begin to act like a hypnotist with certain mannerisms. They become hypnosis. They become the hypnotist. And this is where the hypnotic voice can start to do this for us. So the hypnotic voice we take in 3 stages. We're going to look at the speed of your voice, the volume of your voice, and the intention of your voice. So let's look at speed. I want you to look at your hypnotic voice and treat it as though I want you to become or act like you're going into hypnosis. If you look at your list from the priming sequence and you saw things like relaxed, tranquil, drifting, slowing down, or feeling certain things, I want you to put yourself in that position. Almost act as if you're starting to feel those things. And I want your voice to represent those things. Let's take an example like this. Have you ever spoken to someone that's very, very excited? Is this conducive to trance? Did it put you in a hypnotic trance or put you to sleep? Probably quite the opposite. What tended to happen when you're around people that are excited, what tends to happen to you? As you listen to what they're talking about, you tend to become excited yourself. This is a feedback loop from your unconscious to their unconscious. This is the same thing you want your hypnotic voice to do. If you want your client to feel relaxed, how fast would you express the idea of being relaxed? Would it be very, very fast or would it be very, very slow? This is the idea of the hypnotic voice. So to look at our speed, we have normal speed, we have extremely fast, and we have slowing right down, which is more conducive to hypnosis. Normal speed is the speed I'm talking to you right now. Extremely fast tends to represent some sort of excitement. This is the opposite of trance. Trance can be exciting as a result, but if I want my client to drift into a relaxed state, if that's where I wanted to take them, I can't speak these words of feeling relaxed and tranquil and drifting in an exciting speed because it will have mixed messages. So what I want to do is start to slow things right down. So when I'm using words like drifting, I'm using words like relaxation, I'm using words like being or feeling tranquil, I'm going to slow right down to represent those words and allow my client to absorb the priming sequence that I'm giving them. If I rush over the fact of the things I want my client to feel, or I rush over the fact of how hypnosis is going to be for them, they might miss some crucial statements that I really want them to feel. So your speed, you've got 3 ways to do it. You have normal speed, you have extremely fast, which is the opposite of trance. If, however, you're going for an excited trance or you're working on more state-based clients where you needed your client to feel excited about something, you would go first. You would need to get excited yourself first. The hypnotic voice is the third option. We need to slow things right down. I want you to act and sound like the very trance you want your client to go into. The next stage is volume. We have extremely high, we have low, which is conducive to a whisper, or we have somewhere in the middle. Now, right in the middle is where your hypnotic voice needs to be. So we're going to slow things right down. I don't want to take my voice to a whisper because I don't want them to struggle to hear me, but I don't want my volume to be so loud that it possibly hurts their ears or they need to move back because I'm yelling and screaming. It's not very conducive to trance. So I'm going to slow right down. My volume's going to be in between almost a whisper and a normal voice, or the normal volume that I have. I'm going to have somewhere right in the middle there. So they really need to pay attention. Remember the ABSU formula, attention. I need them to pay attention and really use their ears properly when they're listening to the things that I'm talking about. Stage 3 being the most important. This is your intent, and we discussed this a little bit before. If you want your client to go into a positive place, you want your client to feel relaxed, you want your client to drift off, you want your client to go into a trance, you want your client to have certain outcomes. Your intention, the way you deliver your message, needs to be powerful. If you're bored by using these words or bored in your interaction, these will have diverse results across your therapeutic career. If you're bored, your client will probably get bored with you, just like the excited person gets you excited with them as soon as you start talking to them. Your intent needs to be full on. You need to put intention into the words. You need to feel those words that you're saying and then express them to your client. If you want your client to have a very positive outcome, think about how that positive outcome would influence your life if you were your client. Get excited for them, okay? Always watching your volume and your speed when you get excited, of course, but get involved in their therapeutic outcome. Get involved in them overcoming their challenges and get involved and become that hypnotist. So putting it all together, our speed, we want to slow things right down. Our volume, we want somewhere right in the middle, so not yelling and screaming, but we're also not whispering. And your intent needs to be a lot of intention. Really feel those words. Believe the things you're saying so your client gets those across for you as well. So including in this, now that we've looked at your hypnotic voice, we can start to move into an acronym that are 2 extra steps that help enhance the hypnotic voice. Now, you might be getting a little bit confused at the moment, so I do want to clarify something. We are still looking at the P. The P is the priming. These 2 or 3 extra steps that we're introducing you to are enhancing the priming sequence you do to give it more robustness, to give it more flavor, to give it more sizzle, if you will. After the P, we obviously look at the hypnotic interview, which is the second part of the 6 stages. But right now, we're still on the P, so we don't want to jump ahead yet. What I want to introduce you to with the hypnotic voice underway is now what I call your hypnotic attitude. This is how we start to become a hypnotist. As we stated before, you want to become that hypnotist. You want to become that client. You want to feel those things you want your client to feel so they go there along with you. This acronym I want to use for this is what I call the EVP rule, EVP, which stands for eye contact, your hypnotic voice, which we just looked at, and your pausing, which we're going to spend a little bit more time on now. Your eye contact, again, we'll come to a little bit later, but we need to first develop an understanding of what to look for and see, which is the unconscious moments, before we put into place the eye contact. So let's look at pausing. To add to our hypnotic voice, we can also play with pausing in your priming. We can look at normal pausing, and we can look at extended pausing. Now, I want to look at this as which one of these makes your priming sequence more intriguing for you to listen to as the therapist, but more intriguing for your client to listen to also. Let me give you an example of both of 2 different monologues using the categories that we had before and just the power words. I'll adjust my voice slightly so it's a little bit more hypnotic, but also play with some pauses. The first one, I'm going to use normal pauses, and I want you to contrast the 2 when I go to extended pausing. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Let's use Joe Bloggs as our client again. All right, Joe, so before we get into the session, I want you to understand one thing about what we're going to go through. Today is about you, Joe. This time we're going to spend together is about reevaluating the life that you're living so you live a life of your desires. Now, I understand you've come in here for stop smoking today. I really get that. And I understand you've probably been smoking for a long time. And you're probably very frustrated with the fact that you just can't quit. And that's what today is about. To take you to a place that we call trance. It not only feels relaxing, it feels tranquil. You get to drift off into another state, if you were, Joe. But you get to understand what's internal for you, Joe. It's almost take the lid off your internal power, Joe, so you start to feel amazing, Joe. So you can sit there and just listen to my voice, knowing I'll keep you safe, but really come to terms with what it takes to actually unconsciously change her. This is what the session's about today. So there we have it. That's just putting a little bit of a hypnotic voice on, and also just playing with pausing just a little bit, just normal pauses. Now what I'm going to do is do an off-the-top monologue, and these are just spur-of-the-moment off-the-top monologue. These haven't been prepared beforehand. And I'm going to extend the pauses, and I just want you to notice what happens to your attention as you listen to them. Okay, Joe, we're about to get in today's session, and I really want you to understand something about what we're going to talk about today, Joe. Today is about you, and not just about how you're feeling now, but our trance can take you to a place, Joe, that's relaxing, that's safe, of course, and you get to understand the real you inside, Joe. This is what hypnosis does for people. It allows them to feel positive. It allows them to get excited about things, Joe. To possibly overcome not just one issue, but to gain a complete understanding of what it feels like to be you. Not only will I look after you today, Joe, but you'll gain something. You'll gain something, maybe something you've been looking for a long time, Joe, that gives you what you need to see outside of your problem, Joe. And all you need to do there is sit there and breathe, of course, Joe, and allow not just me to look after you, but to allow everything that's inside of you that's unconscious now, Joe, to develop a good feeling. And you can absorb it, Joe. And this is what our session is about today, Joe, to feel these certain things. And there we have it. By extending the pauses, you should get a vastly different result. And that vastness between normal pausing and extended pausing gives us another level above just your general hypnotic speech. Now, the great thing about normal pausing and extended pausing, sometimes the extended pausing takes a little bit of time to get used to, and these are the common reports we get from our students, is that you can use both. Is you try both. And just like you're learning how to prime out loud using your list and using your power words, which are just those words to connect everything together, you'll now play with pauses. Put pauses in place where grammar doesn't really call for it. Combine your short pauses, your long pauses, intermediate pauses. What pausing does is this. It gains more attention. Remember the ABSU formula that all hypnosis must adhere to. The A is your attention. By longing those pauses and extending them, you're allowing your client to take notice of what you're saying. You're allowing your client to absorb the message you want them to have and giving them time to compute the new information. This is what pausing does. Pausing grasps onto attention. And this means for you as a hypnotist, you get more from the words you're saying, and it allows you to slow down. Remember we talked about your speed before. If you're rushing things just to get the words out, you'll miss the golden opportunity that pauses give you. So just like you're practicing out loud with your priming sequence, now I want you to begin to pause. Put extended pauses, put normal pauses, short pauses, long pauses. Really extend your pauses. Just see what happens as a result. Does your client listen more to you? Or do they listen less to you? What's comfortable for you? And this is your EVP rule. The eye contact to complete this formula we'll come to a little bit later. But now we have your hypnotic voice underway and we have your pausing. This is your hypnotic attitude. This is how you start to become and sound and act like a hypnotist. So there we have it. We have your EVP rule underway, and all we've looked at right now is the priming sequence. So what I suggest you do before we move on to the next section is to go over what you've learned previously and start to practice, again, that monologue out loud, and now put in your pauses, put in your hypnotic voice, and just see what happens. You want to contrast between too much speed, too little speed, too much pausing, not enough pausing, too high a volume, too low a volume. Start to play with these until you find the right mixture for you. So let's move on to the next step. We now looked at priming, Our next stage is the hypnotic interview. Now, to get the most from this program right now, where we are right now, I do want to halt on the hypnotic interview, and I want to move into the I, which is the induction. So we have PHI. I want to move into the induction because I'm sure you're just as excited as you are about me, is to get into your first induction. So I want to introduce you to your very first formal induction. Knowing we'll come back to the hypnotic interview later, that will inversely create more of that hypnotic attitude for us as well. So let's look at a very simple and simplistic hypnotic induction. And believe it or not, if you've been practicing the priming sequence, you're 3/4 of the way there. So if you get your list out for me that has the things you want to tell your client about the session, we'll call these your priming themes. These are things you're going to talk about. I now want to do the same thing. You make a list, a fourth list or a fourth column, and I want to introduce you to your trance themes. Now, these are things your client will feel in hypnosis. Now, you might be thinking, well, that was my category 1. When I told my client what they will feel about hypnosis, you can either take that list or you can create another list entirely. We're going to use those themes, those same ones you use in your priming, as your induction, with just one little change. This is the divergence of conversational hypnosis. We can take some steps from other processes and other systems and other techniques, if you will, put them into other places, and they become something new automatically. This is the great thing about conversational hypnosis. So what are our trance themes? All you need to ask yourself is, what does client feel? What does hypnosis feel like? Does it feel relaxing, tranquil, drifting, peaceful, internal, at ease? All of these types of things should take up the majority of that fourth list, of that fourth column, if you're making a new one, or you can just add 2 more values of your first list. And all you're going to do is this. And this is not a bad idea to find a volunteer for yourself while you're practicing this, of course, or just to do this out loud, to run this system or run this theme through your head. I would suggest grabbing someone if they're willing to go through it and just see what happens. So let's say you do have a training partner. Let's say I'm working with Joe again. Let's use Joe again. Joe's going to spend some time with us over this entire training program. This is how it's going to be for Joe. Joe's going to formally sit in front of me, and being this is just a practice session, I'm probably going to let Joe know. So I'm going to say something like, Joe, I'm practicing to be a hypnotherapist. Can I use you as a volunteer? I'm just going to talk to you, Joe, and just tell you to do a couple of things. Are you okay with that? Are you willing to just practice this with me so I can become an influential hypnotist? As long as Joe says yes, you're in the right place. Now, what I've done right then, if I've done something important, is I've got compliance from Joe. I've got his permission to become a hypnotist around him, to use him as my training tool, if you will. And that's super important. I don't want to impose my power on people. I want to make sure every volunteer, even when I'm formally training students in a face-to-face certification, even though the students are there and willing to learn and be certified through us as a training company, I still ask permission. I don't pick people out of the crowd and say, you come up here, sit next to me. I ask who would like to go through this demonstration, who would like to feel this certain technique or experience this certain technique. I'm still getting permission. And I would do the same thing, and I was doing the same thing when I was still treating clients or when I was practicing. I'm still getting formal permission to make sure the person I'm working with is in the right place and the right frame of mind for me to work with. So I'm going to start from scratch. Let's say Joe's sitting in front of me. I'm going to go through my normal priming sequence. I'm going to tell Joe about the safety. I'm going to tell Joe about what he's going to feel. I'm going to tell Joe about the result of the session. I'm going to tell Joe that all my attention's on him. I'm going to inform Joe about the noises that are around. And all I'm going to do is spend a couple of minutes, just for now, priming Joe. Now, let me give you an example of what could happen. Let's say I'm using all these positive themes for Joe. I'm just priming him right now, and he's sitting there looking at me, and he's nodding his head like, yes, that's everything I want to feel. And I'm being very positive in my approach. What do you think Joe, or what do you think we'd start to see Joe start to do? Do you think Joe might start to smile? Joe might start to nod his head, almost to say inadvertently, yes, that sounds great. Do you reckon Joe might get excited? If I'm starting to notice these things, it means the very intent that I'm asking Joe to feel is starting to have an effect. So hold on to what's occurring right there. Hold on to those thoughts, because we'll look at that, and this is part of our unconscious moments. That's just a little, a quick reveal for now, if you will. So now that I've primed Joe, I might say to Joe, okay, Are you ready to get into hypnosis right now? He says, yes. I'm going to skip the hypnotic interview because this is not a formal session. It's just a trance session, an induction session. And all I need to do is ask Joe to close his eyes. For now, all I want you to look at eye closure. There's discussions back and forth. Does eye closure deepen trance? Does it do this for trance? Does it allow this for trance? To keep it really, really simple, I want you to look at your client's eye closure as just to avoid distraction. Let's say you've got people walking around. Maybe you're doing this at a bar or a social meeting or a dinner or something like that. You've got other people at the table, other people walking around. I don't want them to distract from the very situation I want Joe to go into. If it's formally and someone's in my office, I might have a painting or something in my office that keeps distracting Joe while he's trying to figure out the colors and trying to figure out what that painting's about. So by closing Joe's eyes, he becomes more internal. So I prime Joe, his eyes are still open, and I'm saying to Joe, all right, Joe, close your eyes for me. And all I'm going to do, once his eyes are closed, is use the same power words, which are and, as soon as, because, which means the same words or something to that effect that I use for my priming sequence to keep it a monologue or a speech. And I'm going to do the same thing, the exact same thing, no different, and include all those positive trance themes about what trance will feel like. And it may be something like this. So let's imagine I prime Joe. He's all willing to go. I can see him starting to smile. He's starting to get excited about the trance he's about to go into. I'm going to say to Joe, all right, Joe, and now close your eyes. Now remember, your EVP right now is super important. All right, Joe, close your eyes. And I want you to feel how your body feels when it starts to relax. Because hypnosis, Joe, is all about what it feels like to relax. Deeply relaxed, that is. And while you're doing that, Joe, and you're starting to breathe and slow down, which means that some sort of trance is beginning to take place. And it feels a certain way, Joe. You don't need to move. You don't need to talk. You just need to drift. Because drifting, Joe, allows you to breathe all the while your body sinks into the chair. And you don't need to do anything more, Joe. And just allow it to all take place inside Joe. And it's an internal feeling, Joe. Parts of your body may relax or get heavier more than others. Just while you drift, Joe. Just while you drift, Joe. All the way into trance now, Joe. And there we have it, or something to that effect. So what you can probably notice first is the increase of pausing. I'm slowing down more. And I'm using words that are conducive to how hypnosis feels. Now, if this is the first time doing something like this, and you're not too sure how hypnosis feels, you might want to do a bit of research or ask people that have been in hypnosis and get some clarification on what it felt like for them. Because it's these words that will start to express the intent of trance. Now again, I can use the same words and express them in a boring, nonchalant way that'll have no effect. However, if I get myself in the mood, I maybe start to feel myself relaxing. I feel myself letting go just a little bit or sinking into my chair. I'm going first. I'm feeling those things. And then I'm using my words to tell Joe maybe how just I'm feeling or how I want him to feel. Using positive words. They're all in the positive. Nothing to do with pain or hurting or anything like that. It's all positive going to hypnosis. So let's say I've done my monologue for 1 or 2 minutes. I might do this for 2 or 3 minutes. And again, I'm just going to talk and talk. I'm overloading Joe with information. I'm overloading him. I'm asking him to feel certain things, notice certain things, asking him to maybe consider certain things. And all it is just a jumble of words and a jumble of ideas. Even if grammatically it doesn't make sense, those power words allow me to combine ideas together that have nothing to do with each other. And I'm going to repeat the things I want Joe to feel. Now, I'm not doing any therapy. I'm not telling Joe a therapeutic story or asking him to do something that I need him to do inside of this trance. I'm just almost rocking him to sleep, if you will, with my tone, my mannerisms, and my intention of him to go into trance. I'm really putting my EVP on right now. So let's say 2 or 3 minutes have gone by, and I feel like I've talked enough. All I want Joe to do right then is just open his eyes. So I might just say to Joe, that's it, just open your eyes for me now, come back to the room. Now, best practice right now, to add more authority, more professionalism to yourself, at any point, this could be with Joe working now informally, or it could be 10 years from now when I'm working still with formally clients. Anytime my client would come out of trance, I think it's best practice to congratulate them for the job they've done, to put a smile on your face and get excited for them. The last thing you want your client to see is you nervously waiting and sweating because you're not sure if the hypnosis has worked, because that's the last thing you want your client to see as soon as they open their eyes. So the best practice is, as soon as my client would open their eyes, I'd maybe give them a thumbs up or a high five, or I'd just look at them with such happiness that they've done such a good job. And I'll say, well done. Congratulations. You did everything you needed to do. Well done. That was amazing. Now, this alone is trance and therapeutic in itself. It's almost hypnotic. When a client comes out of trance, the moment they come out of trance, they're very suggestible. It's like when you come out of a sleep, you notice that your mind is a bit clear and you can't quite rationally think about what to do. You're sort of laying there in between sleep, not in sleep, and you can't quite think clearly. You're very suggestible at this stage. And it's the same thing with your clients. Your clients are most suggestible when they first come out of trance. So as soon as they open their eyes, I want to give them a positive suggestion. And a suggestion classically is just something you say to your client that you want them to feel or you want them to do or think. That's all a suggestion is. You want them to feel that happiness, like, yes, I did the right thing. Or if I'm the hypnotist and I want to hold my authority, I want to tell my client they did an amazing job. Could you imagine going to a doctor and having to get some sort of treatment, and along the way you were getting treated by this doctor, he kept encouraging every step of the way, like, yes, you're doing fantastically. Your treatment is working extremely well. You're getting better. You're recovering. Well done. It would bring your spirits up. And you take that as a formal suggestion because of the authority of the doctor. It's the same thing with the hypnotist. You want to create this authority. So by letting your client know, yes, congratulations, you should be very proud now, Joe. Well done. It makes Joe think he has done the right thing and allows more positive change to take place at a therapeutic level. So that's your first formal induction. Pretty simple so far. We've taken the same priming sequence and used to add another part, which has been the little formal induction. So again, to recap these steps out loud, is you'll get a training buddy if you can, get them to sit down, always go through your priming sequence, even if they trust you. Even if they know you're going to look after them. Best practice is to let them know about your priming sequence. Your priming sequence is all about safety, learning, fun, enjoying themselves, you looking after them, the random noises they may feel. This is a part of your priming. We need to set up our client. Then just tell your client to close their eyes. Don't worry about the language. It's not important. You're just giving them a direct suggestion. Hey, Joe, close your eyes for me. Put on my EVP. Now you might be thinking, what if the eyes are closed? Where does the eye contact go? We'll come to that question later. And then I'm just going to start that monologue full of the hypnotic or the trance themes. What do you want your client to feel? Discuss that with them. Now, it's not going to be a back and forward discussion. You're going to talk, and you're creating a speech after a speech after a speech. Feel those things along with your client. Use your voice. Try different pausing and talk for 2 or 3 minutes. It may not sound like a long time, but when you're in front of your client, 2 or 3 minutes can be a long, long time. Play with your pauses. Play with the volume. Notice what happens to Joe. And most of all, keep Joe safe. Keep your client safe. Look after them. Don't start to talk and then look around the room or walk around the room to grab some things. When you're in the position of being the hypnotist, you need to stay with your client. You've promised them to look after them 100%. You've promised to be there for them 100%. You need to make true on your promise. So, there you have it. That's your first informal induction. Now, this alone, putting someone into trance, can be therapeutic on itself. Now, once you've done the monologue of the trance themes and they're in hypnosis, just bring them out. We'll look at what happens in the middle there, which is going to be the therapy, but just bring them out and just allow them to feel what it feels like to actually go into trance for the first time. You might even get some feedback. Ask them, how did it feel? And you might notice that Joe says, well, I felt very relaxed. I could feel my body getting heavy. It's almost like my mind was drifting. I sort of was listening to you, then I lost you for a while, then I came back. This is conducive of hypnosis. And when we look at these unconscious moments, we'll be able to ratify that experience and get a clear and concise understanding that answers this question. How do I know my client is in trance? These are the things we need to look for. These are the hypnotic cues we need to make apparent. So there you have it, your first formal induction. Before we get into the next session, which is going to be a long extension on unconscious moments, okay, I suggest if you can to try this with a training partner so you can see the things I'm about to talk about in the unconscious moments section, which is going to be our next session. And then it becomes more apparent to you that the things I'm asking you to look for, you've already seen. Now, if you don't have the circumstance where you can get a training buddy, please go through this routine in your head. Act as if someone is sitting in front of you, okay? Maybe even stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself about these things. You're learning the protocol and putting them into place so it becomes cemented, the routine becomes cemented in your mind. Now, it's not the most stunning or elegant induction, but it has the basis through the most advanced strategies, advanced techniques. We're using our EVP to the fullest. We're using repetition and the law of association to connect it all together. And we're using that hypnotic attitude to the most extent that it has. So when you're ready, let's jump over to the next section, which is unconscious moments, and answering that question, which is, what does hypnosis feel like? What am I supposed to see? How do I know my client is in trance? And what do I do once they're in trance? How do I put this all together? So when you're ready, let's jump over into your introduction into unconscious moments for hypnotherapy. See you in the next one.